Welcome to the Lone Machinist podcast, where we discuss tools, tips, and tales of the trade.
I'm John Dillahay with QSN Performance.
I'm Jamie with JSpec Engineering and JSpec Tactical.
And together we're here to deep dive into manufacturing and entrepreneurship in a small shop.
So grab your safety glasses, fire up your machines, and let's make some noise. Okay, welcome to episode 3 of the Lone Machinists podcast. So what have you been up to in the last week, John?
Oh, Jamie, what's up, man? Yeah, I've been really busy. I've been on a roll tonight. I'm making a 2.5-inch thick pair of soft jaws right now. But for the week, really, I've been doing a lot of prototyping. I had a couple customers that ordered a custom billet clutch cover from me for CR125, and for the models I made it for, the bolt pattern, everything is the same, but it turns out for the older year models with the steel frame, the brake pedal was not clearing. It was binding up on the plate. Ooh. So I had to go back in the middle of everything I'm doing, get my engineer to make a new solid model. I reprogrammed the solid model, and I just machined op1 on it. And I've been in the middle of doing that this week.
Is that the one you were posting on Instagram on the new machine?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Yeah, no, it looks pretty sweet.
Yeah, it came out really nice. I'm really happy with that new machine, man. So I've been trying to get those out to anodize so I can get on to the magnesium parts and set that up in the other machine. But I've been so busy with that stuff that I haven't had time to set up the magnesium job. And that's where the money's at right now. But I'm really big on customer service. I want my customers happy. So I'm just trying to get those revised models out to the customers.
Yeah, no, 100%. Have you changed over your coolant yet?
I have not yet. I'm debating it now because I've heard from several people you can run normal coolant. Other sources online say you should just run, oil only. I don't think I want making only 5 parts. Sorry?
What coolant were you going to change to?
A waterless coolant.
Okay, so just pure
oil. Yeah, okay. Like you would see on like a Swiss machine or a grinding machine.
Because I know that stuff's quite expensive.
Yeah.
Because I turned on my lathe this week and it smelled delightful.
Really? Which one?
Bertha. Bertha hasn't run since December. But the coolant has been a little stinky for a while. And then I turned it on and I was like, no, not cool. So I got hold of our local guys. I was actually on the Taps and Patience Discord asking about coolant recommendations. Unfortunately, we can't get Qualichem here. Otherwise, I would have gone to Qualichem. I don't really want to go to the products that Blazer offers here. I deal with the agent, but they don't have any of the good general purpose ones, and I'm not putting Synergy in my machine. So I ended up getting hold of FlexiLube, and the rep actually came through yesterday. So I'm waiting for a quote this morning that I can. They've also got someone to take away the old coolant. So for not too much money, I can have the old coolant taken away.
Yeah, it's important. The Synergy Blazer stuff, that's the clear stuff, right?
That's the clear stuff, but I've heard I know initially there were some issues. I don't know if it's been resolved, and I don't want to risk it on my machine.
I've heard the same exact thing.
Yeah, I heard there were rust issues and things like that. So these guys, the rep came through yesterday. The better service than I've ever got from a coolant place, because I used to just drive up the road to the coolant place and buy coolants. Never had a rep from what I was using come past. But the FlexiLube guys came past, and hopefully they will put their money where their mouth is with their products. It's about twice the price of my current coolant. But they reckon biostable, and they've got a cleaner I can run through the machine, because that needs to happen in the next couple days. I need to run the cleaner through, because I've got production to run towards the end of the week, and the bar loader is not going to be happy if the machine stinks.
Yeah.
And just for context, by bar loader, I mean my wife. Just for anybody who doesn't know that I call my wife the bar loader.
I love how IMTS, when I met you,
Yeah.
you introduced her as the bar feeder.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, she's got, we got an order. So we're hoping to get a nice big order from these guys of like 500 assemblies, and they placed an order for 200. And only 200 of the assemblies, not all the accompanying parts. I'm like, oh, that's a bit of a bummer. But in reality, we can turn that order out in one day, and it's, like $1,500 order. So worthwhile. But that's all having processes in place to make it as easy as possible to run repeat work.
That takes planning, yeah.
And that actually leans into our topic of lean.
Lean, yes, lean.
Yes, because so in that case, we've optimized the hell out of the process. We've got our setup sheets in place. Like my implementation, I wouldn't say it's pure lean. Like we do overproduce a little bit, but that's more of a case just in case we run into a problem in assembly. Like we're not overproducing like 10x, we making 10% spare. And then the next batch, those 10% or the first 10% on the next batch. Just so if we have an assembly issue, we're not dead in the water. Or if we drop a part and ding it, we're now not short of a part, because that's that one of my customers, they only make enough, and inevitably something happens to one part, and then you have to reset up and rerun a single part. So while we set up, we try and just run one or two extras. And then, we've documented everything when it comes to that customer's work. Hopefully got a couple more products coming this year from them. But the stuff we do for them now is optimized, setup wise. Like everything is, we try and make it as low effort as possible.
Optimization.
Yeah. So like
definitely.
The way I
least amount of energy.
That's it. The way I see lean's great for people with ADHD, because you basically trying to make it as simple as possible or as low effort as possible to do something the correct way. That's my interpretation of lean. Like obviously you can get really into it with all the other sides of it, like the Toyota method and not overproducing, everything just in time, things like that. But in the small job shop, that's not really that easy to implement. Like I see it as my tool, like my setups need to be optimized. My production, not necessarily, because it changes from week to week what we're running. We're not making the same part again and again and again.
Yeah, you're not using all the same exact tooling and the same holders all the time.
Yeah, well, I kind of
same work offset all the time.
We'll get into tool libraries and work offsets a little later.
Yeah.
But what is your take on lean?
I think it's a great thing. First getting into it is a little intimidating, but yeah, if you want to fully implement it, that's a good thing, But I just see some holes in it that seem kind of impractical. I've watched a lot of Jay Pearson videos. It seemed a little culty to me, but I can see the benefits of it.
Yeah, I think it gets that rap. You've either got the guys who are really, really into it, or the guys who are on the fringe and kind of think it looks a little bit like a cult.
Yeah. I think it's a good thing, but working in like a real job shop, 20 machine shop, doing lots of Inconel stuff and stainless stuff on lathes and mills, like you were saying, ordering extra material was just an absolute must.
Yeah.
And I don't care how dialed in your process is, when you're doing that many different types of parts and part numbers that often on that many different machines, you have to order extra material.
Yeah, I've got a customer that I'm always like, just if you need 100 parts, make 101. Give the customer 101. If 1% is going to put you out of business, you're running entirely too lean. Like you need to put your markups up and then give them an extra part. Because guess what? When I deliver 101 of something, I never get a phone call saying, hey, there was an extra part. but deliver 99 and you'll get a phone call saying, hey, we're a part short.
Yeah.
So I rather
you
just
have that new operator who's loading parts and has their, their wear offset off by 2 thou.
Yeah.
Or something they clamp the stock and the vise wrong, and you have a couple parts that are bad, and if you don't have enough extra, you got to reorder the material and start all over again.
Yeah.
Just to make a couple more parts, and it's really shooting yourself in the foot, man.
No,
I've seen
definitely.
it
Like
too
I
many
ran,
times.
so those big camera housing parts that I ran, I ordered one extra of the big plate and then one extra of the two smaller plates. And I used that one big one because when I put the models into Fusion, I used I selected the top face as my to do my joint to align everything. And I selected on the
Mm-hmm.
one part, I selected the top face and I selected the bottom face. And their centers were not exactly aligned. It was off by like probably 5 thou. And I only noticed it after I had machined the second side on that part. It was only one of the 6 parts that I had done that on. Luckily, I had a spare piece of material and I could run another one. Otherwise, it would have been, oh, okay, looks like we're not invoicing this for another week while I wait for more material.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
yeah, I just built that into the cost of the material. When I quoted the job, I quoted for, so like when I quoted it, I sent an email off to my material suppliers. I'm like, listen, I need this list of material. Whatever the price came back at, I then used that in my quote and compensated for that. Like that spare material is built into my price. If I don't use it, it gets put in my material rack. And when I need it for something else, I've got material on the rack.
Yeah, that's why I keep a lot of drop. If in
Yeah.
case I screw something up, and I
No, well,
really
that's it.
need
I've
that
got,
that invoice to get through to the
yeah.
next week, and if I'm a part short and I can't get paid because of that one piece, it's
No,
painful.
that's yeah. I've got a crate full of all my alley drops. Like now, I got a job come through again. It's the third time the job's come through. Um, I ordered 110 pieces of material last time for 100 parts, and I made it out of 100 parts. I had leftovers from the previous run. I had ordered like 110, and I think I had like 5 pieces spare from the previous run. This run, I'm
Mm-hmm.
ordering 100 parts because I've got, I think, 16 parts of spare material. So now I'm not going to buy additional spare material. The process is pretty dialed. I think last time I scrapped 1 out of 100 and then the rest just ran flawlessly. I'm waiting for them to now pay for the order so that I can actually order material because those guys, I do nothing until there's money in my account because their
Yeah.
accounts
So
department
basically,
is
this last
beyond
time you
useless.
ran it, you
I
didn't
had
screw up
spare.
any. The
Yeah.
first time before you had your process dialed, you ordered extra.
Yeah.
So from
And
here
now the
on out, if
material,
you don't have to order extra, and if you need it,
yeah.
it's there.
So it's
Yeah,
all
that's good.
strapped up nicely. It's going to go on the shelf with a tag for this job because this job comes around like once
Okay.
or twice a year. And then
Oh,
I'll use
repeat.
them.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's a repeat job. I think they said they needed 600 assemblies in total. We're now on 300 assemblies.
Yeah.
But yeah, the
So, I
nice
mean,
part is the little latches I make. I run 20 of them in about an hour. I hit go and I walk away and I come back in an hour and take my 20 parts out and load another bar.
yeah. So
Yeah, it's
the
great.
whole lean thing in an ideal world, it's great. It's
Mm,
awesome. You're doing everything at a high level with the least amount of resources and the least amount of energy expended. But I mean, from my experience in a practical context,
yeah,
it it just doesn't work like that. There has to be, I think, a middle ground between
yeah.
lean and practicality. And I guess that maybe that depends on what kind of machine shop are you. Like, are
Well,
you
that's,
strictly production,
yeah.
or are you a prototyping shop? If you're both kind of like I am, there has to be kind of a middle ground there. You know what I mean?
No, exactly. Like that. That's the thing. I think it gets this thing where guys are like, yeah, no, it's changed the way we do business. But in their case, they are running the same thing every day. They've got
Hmm.
their 20 or 30 parts that they run, and that's it. There's no, yeah, there's R&D, but the R&D is for the next product that's going to be optimized. It's not a large
Absolutely.
portion of what they do. But yeah, that's just my take on it. Like, I don't know. I know Pearson always goes on about people-centric lean. So a lot of it also gets a bad rap because a lot of times it'll come down from like corporate. No, we're now implementing lean, and they kind of force it upon their employees, and the employees revolt. So you've got to make it about the people, not about the process, and that
Okay.
makes sense to me. Like you
I'm
want to
all
make
for that.
you implementing it not because we're trying to push profits up. We're implementing it because we want your job to be as easy as possible. We want you to get what needs to get done with the least amount of effort. And then it makes perfect sense. Like I document setups on recurring jobs. I made an ERP in App Sheets, in Google App Sheets. I don't use it
Uh-huh.
that much, but any repeat job, when I initially set up, I'll then add notes and pictures on how the setup is done so that when the job comes around again, it takes me, the one part I do took me 4 hours to set up the first time. I'm now running in 15 minutes because I don't have to think, where did I put that tool holder in the machine on the gang lathe? I have a
Uh-huh.
picture, and from that picture, I can discern all the clearances that are required. I have a list of all the tools. I have any other notes that are required. So I can go from machine standing to running parts in 15 minutes instead of 4
Yeah.
hours.
And
Because
if you had
the
somebody else run that job for you,
yeah,
then you don't have all that tribal knowledge in your head. Even if you remembered all that stuff,
yeah,
if you wanted to have, your wife help you or somebody else, they
yeah.
wouldn't know where to start. But since
No,
you're
that's a
doing
big
that and
thing.
implementing that, that's a great
Yeah.
example of how that could improve your process
But
by the
that's
setup sheets.
getting it out of your head is key. Like it's all
Yeah,
good
I
and
need to
well.
work on that.
You keep everything in your head, but I look at it like if I get hit by a bus, I need my business to still be able to run to a certain degree. And everything is well enough documented that if something happened and I couldn't run the machines myself with a little bit of effort, I could have my wife set the machines up and run them. There would be a bit of a learning curve, but we could get that to work.
I'm sorry. The thought of my wife doing that kind of scares me.
Yeah, yeah. The thing is, I've documented a lot of stuff for that reason. Like even now, when my NAS got wiped, I'm not too heart sore about it because most of the stuff is just like the day to day stuff. I can repost out of Fusion, and it's not going to
Hmm.
be like I'll have to add a line at the end of the code to bring the table to me for unload. Like that doesn't have to be there. It's just a convenience thing, and like that's a bit annoying. And there's some stuff that I've lost for Bertha that's really annoying uh, because it's got all my bar pulling stuff. But I've got a backup of that on my desktop of that machine, so I can just go and copy the code out of there. It'll take me an hour to get it running again, and then I can run production. Because I had a meeting with a customer yesterday when I went to go drop off shavings, and he was saying they want to place basically an order for the next 6 months. So they want to say, cool, we want 3,000 of this component within the next 6 months. Deliver it at your own discretion. Whatever you deliver, we'll pay for. Um, that I can just order material and know every month I'm going to deliver 500 parts, and that's their 3,000 parts over the next 6 months done.
That's kind
Or
of
I
like
can
a
run,
blanket order, right?
yeah,
They call it a blanket PO.
yeah. So they would say, okay, cool, we want 3,000 parts over the next 6 months. Can the first order
Hmm.
please be at the end of this month? We want 500. Then they're holding stock because they're an interesting business model. They're a press shop. They used to do CNC, some CNC work. They had a mill, they had some lathes, and they've kind of phased out of that, but they can't drop the customers that they had. Like the guys
Hmm.
kind of rely on them for parts. So now they're outsourcing all the turning and milling work.
Cool.
So put the price up a little bit. They make their bucks on the end. It's their customer. I just deliver parts. But what tends to happen is they don't know what planning is. And then I'll get a call. Oh, shit, we forgot to order these. Can I please have X amount of them, but like tomorrow? And then I just burst out laughing. I'm like, that's not how it works, guys. Like, you need to actually plan your stuff out and hold
Yeah.
stock. If you want to be the middleman, you need to be the one holding the stock. So they now are going to hold stock. Like I was there delivering some torque spits that I manufacture. I made them in November and December last year. It's the first 500 of them that I've made in like a year. Since I've had the
Mm-hmm.
LK, I haven't made those things. At one stage, I was making 1,000 of them a month for about a year. We did 1,000 a month on the slow yo, and then I got an order through, and I'm like, I really, really just don't want to do this on the slow yo. So I changed my fixtures up so I could do it on the LK. I did 500 of them in a day. Like it's the LK's bloody fast, and then I was running 10 at a time, not 30 at a time.
The 40 grand helps, huh?
It does. It helps a lot. No,
Who knew?
yeah, I had a customer here yesterday. We were making some modifications to a jig that I made them. The camera housing parts I made, there's the ever so slightest bow in these parts. So they want to pull them to the bonding jigs before they glue them to the carbon parts, because once they glue them to the carbon parts, whatever's twist is there forever. So they want to pull them flat. So they needed an extra like 4 holes in the part. So I'm like, no, come through. Like he planned to come fetch stuff at 11 o'clock yesterday morning. I'm like, come through at 11. Just make sure you like plan to be here for about an hour, and we'll add those extra holes quickly. It took me longer to set the job up than to run it, adding 4 dowel holes and 4 threaded holes to each plate. Like I've got the machine dialed, all the tools are set up. It's super easy. It's just the setup is what Charles time.
Yeah, the way how you set up to hold the plate on the table in
Yeah.
the machine.
So that I had it all in place, but he arrived an hour early. So I had just finished machining a Tufnell part for him, and then he arrived. I'm like, oh shit! I was literally getting ready to turn the LK on and start setting up the job. So when he arrived, I'd be ready. And then he arrived. So then I quickly set it up.
He's early.
And
Yeah.
and then I managed to lose the Tufnell part. Like
So
entirely.
Jamie, I was meaning to ask you. You were talking about the Bertha and the post having to hand edit. Are you
Yeah.
still hand editing your posts, and have you optimized your post processors so
So
you have the least amount of hand editing, and you make it so at the end of each program, like the table comes toward you and Y to bring the
so I
part to you.
haven't
Like, do you do any of that stuff?
I haven't done that on the LK. So the LK, what I did was I set up. I've got a hell of a lot of offsets. I think there's like 100 work offsets on that machine. So I scrolled to the bottom of the list and I homed the machine and I set my G599 to the front where I want to load and unload. Then all I do is
Mm-hmm.
like if I need the machine to come to me, I will post the code and then I'll just hand edit G599, G0, X0, Y0, and then the next line G54 to put me back into my normal work coordinates. And I add that into my code by hand just because
Mm-hmm.
I haven't bothered setting up a pass through or anything on my post.
Okay.
Because my post does a really shitty job of pass throughs. I do need to work on it because my even tool break detection, to run my tool break macro, I can't just pass that through. So I post it as a comment, then I go and the comments through my posts with semicolon space the comment. So I go through and I highlight that, and then I just replace it with just the comment. So there's a little bit like very minor hand editing on the LK.
Mm-hmm.
On Bertha and the MCO, there's always going to be hand editing because I don't want the machine going all the way home to do a tool change. So I don't tell it to safe position for tool change. I then will post the code, go in, and I'll just edit my transitions because it's a gang lathe. Like if the
Yeah.
tool's a long tool, it needs to come back 15 millimeters, like half an inch,
It depends on the part
moving.
in the
Yeah,
tool.
before moving
Yeah.
an X. If it's like a tool that's shorter, then it needs to move to the new tool Z before I move an X. So it's just, that's very much hand editing kind of stuff because it's a gang lathe. And
I
then
get that.
the M code gets so little new code that I don't bother fixing the post because it's got programs that run. They're loaded, they're on the controller, they don't get unloaded. Like I've got a backup of them, but they live on the controller. They've all been edited to run with their auto feed and auto bar pull and all that stuff, which is all hand edited in anyway, because it's just a sequence of M codes that are added to the machine.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I turn the spindle off, then I
You
delay.
can't model your gang lathe, like the tools and the holders in CAM, and do it that way
It
to where you
always
know it's going to
changes.
clear.
Nah, it always
Okay.
changes. So, yeah, the tools never go back exactly where they were. So it's not
Oh,
really
that's a
worth
good
the,
point.
not really worth the time. And it also depends because
Yeah.
I'll load up 5 tools, and depending on the job, I'll pick which is my master tool. So normally
To
it's
touch
like,
off with.
yeah,
Yeah.
so normally it'll be like tool 8, which is a WNMG insert. Um, if I'm, yeah, like when I'm initially setting up. And then tool 29 is a finishing insert that I'll adjust that offset not in relation to the other, like, yeah, there's a whole thing with lathes. Lathes are an acquired taste.
Acquired taste.
Yeah, so like I will, a lot of my stuff, the material cost is not high, so I will do it Swiss style where you just run a part, measure it, and then adjust from there.
Cool. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
When I first got my last machine, my first Sharp, I
yeah,
uh, I was I didn't know exactly how the controller worked, what it liked, what it didn't like. And for a while, I was messing with the G90 and the G91 because I couldn't figure out why I would post a program, I would run it through the machine, and it would move in incremental. I'm like, man,
uh,
why the heck is it keep moving in incremental? I put the G90 in there. I don't know why it's doing that. And then the the drip feed controller, the little drip feeder unit, had some old
yeah,
programs that had ran on the machine before when I bought the machine.
yeah,
And I was looking through them, and I noticed that all of them, the G90 and the G54, had to be on the same line.
yeah,
I don't know why this old Fanuc controller like that, but that's what it was. And I put G54 and G90 on the same line, worked just fine. I was like, okay. But from then on, there on out, I was using, a generic Fanuc post on Fusion, and I was
yeah,
still having to hand edit every program, every tool change,
yeah. That's
G90,
tedious.
G54
That's
on
when
the
you go
same
and change
line.
your post. Yeah,
And I remember one night I was running some kill switch holders for a customer, and it was late. I was really tired, and I wanted to get them out the next day, and I had to make some changes to the program to fix something or something, and I forgot to hand edit one of them. And I had
yep.
just got a brand new vise, and I'll tell you
Ooh,
what, Jamie, that spindle came right down on that vise in the corner of it. I wasn't paying attention. I forgot to put the G54 and G90 on the same line when I hand edited it, and it woke me up.
yes,
It
that will
was it
make
was
you.
really fun. But to
Yeah.
make a
No,
long
well,
story short,
yeah,
I didn't want that to happen again, obviously. And I was talking to Jarrett Morgan at Possum Solutions, and he actually made me a custom post where he put in everything that I had wanted on it. I'm like, yeah, at the right before the M30 on each program, I want the table to come to Y0 so I can load and unload the parts. I want the G54 and the G90 on the same line, blah blah blah, all the stuff I wanted. And he was able to do it, and man, it helped so much.
yeah.
Made a huge
No,
difference.
so I did post edits. Well, yeah, I crashed my customer's lathe because we were posting with the generic Siemens turning post, and for some reason, it would send the lathe to Z0X0 at the end of the program. And I was there. It was like the third day we were running the machine. We were just trying to figure out what it wanted. And I was just going through and deleting these lines of code because they weren't necessary. And I'd been
Yeah,
on site since it's like an hour's drive from me. I'd been there since 6 in the morning. This was now coming up on 6 in the evening, trying to fine tune this one part. We're dialing it in, last run for the day, and I forgot to delete that line of code. And I'm talking to them back to the machine. Like, it's been running fine all day. It'll be okay.
yeah,
And the machine finishes and just slams the tool into the center of the chuck because the job was set up that the face of the chuck was, or the face of the chuck jaws was the Z0 because
zero zero. Yeah,
they were running a bunch of different jobs. That was the easiest way for me to program it, that they never have to mess with the offsets, and
just the
slammed
reference point.
into
Yeah,
the, yeah, 20, it was 1 inch bar, and machine just came slammed into this 1-inch bar right at the chuck. And yeah, then I edited their post. But yeah, I've been editing posts for a long time. I edited the post for the Sister Slowio and for the Linux CNC lathes, because I discovered if you don't constrain the smoothing tolerance is like half an inch. So what would happen is it would machine a pocket.
That's
Yeah, no, it would machine a pocket, come up and start rapiding before it was clear of the job. So every now and again I'd see like a little mark and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And then the one day I saw it was rapiding up, hadn't achieved position yet and started going sideways. And then I gave it a half a thou tolerance, and then that problem went away. So now I have a post that adds a G64P 0.01.
Some kind of lathe code.
Yeah, and all my lathe code and also my mill code. I noticed it on the mill, and then I just by default added it to the lathe. Then the lathe code by default didn't add the offset. So because it's a gang lathe, I don't call normally on a lathe you call T 202, for instance, for tool 2 on a Fanuc lathe. In my case, I just call tool 2, but then it doesn't always load the offset. So I had to add a line in that would add G43H2. So it would always pull the offsets in. Otherwise, it gets a bit confused. So I added that.
Yeah, I got to do that too on my Fanuc controller. You got to have the H
on your
number
mills.
in there.
On the mill, you've got to do it. On the lathes, it's not always necessary.
Okay.
And then with the LK, I used the default Siemens post, and I put a brand new end mill in. I was doing a job. I was slotting some aluminium and run it nice and run it at like 20% rapids. Cool, runs 100%. Switch the rapid up for the second part and instantly weld an end mill, like stir weld an end mill into the part. So I stopped, retracked. I'm like, weird, maybe my feeds were a little bit high. So I dropped my feed rate, but left the rapid at 100%. Put a brand new end mill in, hit go, same thing. Turns out the coolant was only turning on when the machine came down to the clearance plane, and the coolant took a second or two to turn on. So the machine would wrap it down, be an inch and a half into the cut already, and there's no coolant. So I then went and edited my post that when it does the tool change, it then turns on the coolant before coming down in Z. That way, by the time it comes down in Z, the coolant is already flowing.
Yeah,
it's small things.
Yeah, it's really, really important. Like, I didn't ever realize how important a post processor was.
Yeah.
You think of, your tool library and the way you're loading parts and your work holding everything to be more efficient. But since I started working as a programmer at the last place I worked at, especially with a guy that worked in the medical machining industry that came to work there, and he was teaching me a lot about it. He had a lot of experience. Man, a post processor is just so important to running an efficiently ran shop.
No, having that dialed in
is really important.
Like, I have a very high degree of trust in my post processor. I will post code to my NAS, load it, and hit go. Like if I'm machining a part and I need to open up this bore, I'll go there, adjust the stock to leave, repost, walk to the machine, load code, hit go. My link between the PC, the NAS, and the machine is very I've got a high degree of trust in it.
Wait. I got to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Are you reposting programs just for stock to lead? You're not using like a wear comp?
Nah, I don't really use wear comps. I use wear comp on one job. No, screw that shit. I use it on one job. Like most of the work I do, it doesn't need to be super duper accurate. Like if it's within 4th hour, it's good enough. And
nice.
That's by design. Like a lot of the stuff that I'm involved with, I have quite a large say in the design and the tolerances required. And a lot of the mill stuff, like if I can get away with it having a big tolerance, it has a big tolerance.
It's less stress. I get you.
Like if it doesn't need to be held to 1 thou or less, don't hold it to 1 thou or less. Like if it has a tolerance, use the tolerance. I use wear comp on one job. It's the only time I've used is making the torque splits. I used to use it on the Slowio because
you're just talking about that job.
Yeah, so I used to comp out the ball mill that was doing the actual torques pattern because it would wear out over about 100 parts, would start wearing. So then I used to have code with different offsets, and then I figured out how to do wear comp on that machine on Linux CNC so that I could have one piece of code that would run. I would just run it. Oh, it doesn't fit. Okay, run the finishing code and adjust the tool diameter. And then I got that working on the LK as well when I ran those last time. But otherwise, I generally don't run wear comp.
Yeah, I hear you. Like when I first started programming, I was just changing the stock to leave and posting
Yeah.
out again and running it again. But when I worked at Command Manufacturing, like we were doing a lot of like, semiconductor parts and Inconel 718 heat treated, like really close
Yeah.
tolerances.
Then
They had
you've
a
got to.
CMM and the programmer there used wear comp. And for
Yes.
like the longest time, I knew how to adjust it and get my parts to tolerance there at my day job, but I would go home and I was still doing the stock to leave. I'm like, how is he programming that in there? And
Yeah.
then I was messing around with it one day, and then I saw a compensation type drop down menu on the tool path tab,
Yeah.
and I saw where, and I said, I think that's it. And as soon as I figured that out, it was like
Game
revelatory for
changer.
me.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Yeah, game changer.
I use it on like I said, I use it on one job. It's not part of my normal workflow because a lot of the stuff I do, it doesn't matter. Like it really,
You don't need to. I
yeah.
get it.
No, like most of the stuff has got a tooth out tolerance that I deal with. And tooth out tolerance, generally speaking, you can just you cut it and it's there. Like you don't even have to measure it. Like with a good
Hmm.
machine, clean collets, you'll be right there. If I have to walk a size in, I then walk it in with because my process between the PC and the Siemens controller is so effortless. It's just go repost the code and run it.
That's cool. You're not like me where you have to like put it on a thumb drive, take it out
No,
of your PC tower, walk to the
I
shop,
did that.
stick
I
it
did
in
that
the
for a whole day.
driftier.
No, I did that for one day, and then I figured out how to connect the Siemens controller to the NAS.
Oh, Jamie, you need to teach
The
me. I need to
the
learn
only
your
machine
ways.
the only machine that actually uses a thumb drive is the MCO, and that's because I was too lazy to run an Ethernet cable there.
Oh
And all
man,
like it runs the same programs again and again. So like it's got I think 20 or so programs on the desktop of the controller, and I just load them in when I need them.
so the NAS is just basically a data server.
Yeah, just a network attached storage server.
I need to get on that.
Yeah, no, dude,
So
it's the way
behind
to
with the
go.
times.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
no.
lean thing right there.
The thing is that you've got to have a controller that supports it. Like, I don't think the Finux would support it by default.
I don't think it does either.
No,
That's why
and I
I
don't
stress
think
about it.
that little
Don't even think
transfer
about it.
box does. I don't know if the little transfer box does support it.
It might.
What are those things called?
It's called a DNC drip feed module.
DNC
Yeah.
units. I know. I
Look
looked
up
into them.
Titan CNC
Yeah, I know.
drip feed unit.
Enet DNC. I know you can get ones that will push over the network. See a network attached
Yeah, let me look at it. I don't think there's an
RS232
Ethernet
device.
port on the side of it. No, just USB and
Yeah.
RS232C, which goes
Okay.
into my
Oh,
machine, obviously.
that's unfortunate. I know there is. You can get a flash drive that is, or you can get a net. Yeah, the words are hard this morning. You can get a memory card that shows up on your on your Wi-Fi as a storage device, and you can literally just dump stuff to it.
Huh.
So
Like
you
the
plug.
PMCI a card that goes in the front of the FNUC controller.
No, no. So basically, it would be like a camera memory card that shows up as a network drive.
Oh, like those old memory sticks that go into
Yeah,
digital cameras.
yeah. They show up as a
Okay.
network drive, I think. Just give me a second. Okay, so I found an interesting thing that may work on your setup there. It is called a Flash Air 8 GB wireless SDHC memory card. So it's basically a wireless memory card you put in your camera, and then you can connect to your network. And I think it shows up on your network as a wireless or as a like a network drive.
Really?
I would be like, and they're not expensive. This one's $15, and then you'd need an
Well, how do I
adapter
connect it to the Fanic controller? That's
with your DNC. So what it would be is your little DNC box. You would then you
hmm
would still go into your DNC box, but you would access the files on this drive. You wouldn't have to move your flash drive back and forth. This would stay plugged
Oh,
in.
I could just leave a USB in there that's
Yeah.
connected to a wireless network?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I think it'll work. It'll probably be about $20 to
Oh.
test, but then you're not carrying a flash drive back and forth.
Yeah, you got to send me that Amazon link
Yeah, this
like
this is a South
yesterday.
African website, but it'll get you in the door kind of and figure out what
Yeah,
you
I
need.
don't even know why I would think about that because of lean, you're trying to minimize like unnecessary steps and movement.
So
And
yeah,
this whole
in this case,
time, I've
it,
been doing that.
it also means that your code is always on that device. Like you don't have to because also things are designed to only plug and unplug a certain number of times.
Oh, for sure, the ports get
So
wore out,
yeah,
the
so
pins get
leave it
worn
plugged
out.
in, and you don't have to really worry about it.
That's awesome. So I just have one plugged into my computer that connects with the
Well,
one on
you would
the
just
drip
plug.
box.
So you would plug one in the drip box, and you would access it over your network. So
hmm
over your Wi-Fi, you would access it.
Yeah.
So it would show up, but you would probably have to set it up to show up as a network storage device. But that's not
hmm
particularly difficult to do.
Yeah,
I'd
that
seen them.
would be ideal.
I'm sure I've seen someone's done this before. Like I'm pretty sure I've seen this done somewhere. I just can't remember where.
Yeah, the older Fanic controllers, I love them because they're so, customizable and capable, but there's some downsides like,
Yeah,
connectivity, user friendliness, oh, and the biggest one, memory.
yeah. That was the biggest thing for me was memory on those. I
Yeah,
used to have
it's
one with
brutal.
64 kilobytes of memory. So it was like you would make a high-speed toolpath and then you would go and start adding smoothing until the file was like 45 kilobytes on the PC, like how big the actual
Oh
entire
yeah, I
program
do
would
the
be.
same thing. I keep upping my smoothing tolerance until
Yeah,
the file is small enough. Yeah,
yeah.
I've had to do that
I'm,
many a times.
so I never used to drip feed. I used to just transfer the program into memory because we had some issues with drip feeding. I used to use an old laptop to do so.
Yeah,
Um,
memory is way better though because you can actually use op stop and go back to
yes,
different tools when it's running out of memory. When you drip feed, I haven't figured out how to do that.
yeah. I don't think you can.
I mean, you
Yeah,
can
the
op
drip
stop, but
like
you can't stop a tool and go back to another one. Is what I'm saying
yeah. Well, I
for anyone
loaded a
that's listening.
program with those molds that I was doing on the Siemens controller. I loaded a program that was like 47 megabytes.
Holy!
Loaded into
What is that
machine
like a one
memory.
thou step over the whole plate?
No, it was like 6 thou step, 6 thou step over.
Oh,
But
that's
the
not bad.
plate was a foot by like
Yeah,
8 inches. It wasn't
a lot
small,
of
and
surface
it was
inch.
a whole weird. So I had a roughing pass that was at about 20 thou step over, and then I had a finish that was at 6 thou step over.
Nice.
Yeah, the Oaks are super, super happy with those molds I made. I've got another set coming in now in the next week or two for them.
Man, I love it when customers are happy.
Yeah,
It's the
no, like
best feeling, isn't it?
I was chatting to my friend who does all the design work for these guys, and he was saying the Oaks won't tell you, but they are super impressed with your work. Like they won't go to you saying, "Yeah, your work's great," but they are super impressed. Like things just fit, and like that job, I must have spent about 2 or 3 hours on the phone with the guy who designed the part. I'm like, "Hey, there's a problem here. Your hole size is wrong," and then we would go through and like I look at it. I've got the full assembly as well, so I'm looking at it from how these things must go together and making sure that all their tolerancing is correct.
Yeah,
That's one of the
engineer
reasons.
to
Yeah,
machinist communication is key.
and that's the thing. Like he's an industrial designer, not an engineer. So like he missed a tolerance on the one thing. I was going to machine the mating components. And I'm like, hang on, let me just double check. The one had a 8 thou clearance and the other one had a no thou clearance. So then I'm like, hey, Raj, we need to update this. So then I updated my model, then sat on the phone with him while he updated his version of the model, that our version's tied up again, because I would like to not have to reprogram this the next time it comes around.
Yeah, no without clearance, that's almost an interference fit, right?
Yeah,
That's
no,
like
it was,
insane.
it was going to be bad. And then, yeah,
That's
caught
like
some things
EDM
where,
stuff.
yeah, caught some things where the holes were the wrong size, and trying to figure out like the one hole through the side is, so from where you can access it, it's M5 for about 8 millimeters, and then it goes to M4. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Have a look at the assembly. Oh no, you
Is
can
it
only fit
tapered?
an M. So it's drilled. So you drill out your tapping size for M4, chase it to the depth with M5, thread mill M5, and then run a tap through by hand to tap the M4 at the bottom. But the reason is you can only get enough clearance if you use an M4 bolt on the inside of the thing, and the outside they want to use M5 because they want a bit of extra strength.
Oh, they want to use a different bolt on each side of
Yeah,
the plate. Oh,
yeah.
okay, I get that.
I'm looking at this. I'm like, what drugs are you people on? And then the one part
That's
was
weird.
modeled for M4 and the other was modeled for M5. So I'm like, hang on, have a look at the assembly. Okay, this plate has clearance holes for M4. This plate has clearance holes for M5. And then update the models, then sit with him and get his models back up to date. Because like all these small things, like if you're
The
the
clearance
designer,
holes is, for clarification, that's like the counter bore for the bolt to slide in before it starts running,
or
right?
no, just the
Just to
hole
clear.
through the part that's mating. So like
Yeah,
that was
okay.
a
That's what I
4.5
mean.
millimeter, yeah,
Yeah,
or a five point
for
five
the
millimeter
shank.
hole, yeah, for the shank of the
Okay.
bolt.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like we sat for quite a long time just picking up all these little things. Like if you're the designer, you don't see these things because you've designed it. You've got you don't think you're going to make a mistake, so you don't see the mistakes that you make.
Yeah, you're
Like
just
it's very,
designing the part for what you want it to do,
yeah,
but you're
it's
not paying complete attention on how to
yeah.
execute that
There
and
there
make it
is there is
exist.
a saying for it. I can't remember what it is. Confirmation bias, I think, where you think you design the thing, you can't see the mistakes you've made. Like you can't
Yeah.
see them. As far as you're concerned, there are no mistakes. Meanwhile, you've made a whole bunch of cock ups, and you've got to try and yeah. That's the second set of eyes. That's why second set
Yeah,
of eyes is
peer
critical.
reviewing is very
Yeah.
important.
No,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's one of the reasons
So,
this work gets sent to me, because if this was sent out to another shop, they would have taken the parts individually. Whatever was modeled is what they machined.
mhm.
Whereas in my case, I look at it, I want to understand where it's going so that I know what tolerances I need to hold firstly. And then also, what are the actual requirements? Because, yeah, people draw things wanting it perfect when in reality, they can get away with a hell of a tolerance.
So speaking of where it's going, where did you want to lead our listeners to learn more about our podcast?
Good point. So, yeah, if you guys want to support the podcast, you can hit up either of our websites. Mine is jspeceng.com. Sorry. Links are in the description. On there, we've got some products that we make. We've got the frame lock utility knife. Gen 1 and Gen 2 are available on there now. And then hopefully soon there will be pallets available there, or pallet system, but we'll get to that. And then, yeah, John, where can they find your stuff?
You can find my company at www.2smperformance.com or my YouTube channel, 2SM Performance, or on Instagram, 2SM underscore performance, or my personal page at Two Stroke Mafia.
All those links are in the description of the podcast as well, so you don't have to try and type them in. And then also, please give us a review on Spotify or give us a thumbs up on YouTube to try and promote the podcast a bit so we can get it in front of some more people. Okay, cool. One of the other things that's in our podcast document here is talking about tool libraries.
Yes.
Can you tell me what you do for your tool library, your naming scheme, how you load things in and out? I'm quite curious to hear what your system is.
Okay, it's a pretty archaic system. It's kind of just evolved with time as I've made more and more parts and made parts for different customers and different companies. I have, of course, like a main tool library,
So
which
your
has
core
like
tools effectively.
my core tools effectively, like every tool. It's every tool I've ever ran on a job, just about. But every time I run a chamfer, it's like tool 7. And I've
Okay.
always had my tool 5 as like my finishing half-inch end mill, and then my tool 6 is my half-inch roughing end mill. So it's pretty much like the tool numbers are correlated with like the type of tool they are.
Okay.
So it's it's just how it's evolved. And then if I have to add new tools and model them and assign them speeds and feeds for a part, I just do that as needed, and then I always end up going in the main folder, the main library, and then of course each part will have its own library of like what's been used.
Yeah.
And if I'm working on a similar part but a new revision, I'll just open the old part file, and those tools will just pop up.
Yeah.
I have a lot of work to do on it. I
Okay.
haven't really
No,
taken the time to refine it.
that's not as bad as the stuff I do, but yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get to that now. Okay. And then your machine, your tool changer. Do you have to number your tools 1 through 20, or can you have funny numbers in your tool changer?
No, I can't. It's 1 through 10, which is what I work with for a really long time, which will
Okay.
teach you how to make really efficient programs
Yeah.
and get out of as many uses out of each tool as possible, which I think made me more of an efficient programmer. But the new machine I just bought holds 16 tools, so it feels like a whole new world. I'm really
Yeah.
happy about that. Just the 6 more
16,
tools is amazing.
16 isn't enough. It still isn't enough, but yeah, I get what you say. Yeah, compared to 10, it's a lot more.
Yeah, yeah. At the last place I worked, we had a VF4, a brand new one that had like 51 tools in a carousel, and half the time we were doing so many different parts and prototypes throughout the day, we didn't even know what tool holders were up inside of that thing,
Yeah.
and we definitely didn't use them all. Okay, we just hadn't taken the time yet because it's still a new shop. We were
Yeah.
developing our process. But yeah, 50 tools was nice. And I think we used the last tool in that carousel as the probe. So anytime we
Okay.
needed to call up the probe, it was like tool 51 or
Yeah.
50 or something like that.
Okay. That's similar to what I do. So okay, so my tooling setup, I've got 16 tool positions in my turret. And then as far as I can tell, I have infinite tool numbers on the Siemens controller. I don't actually know.
Very
I
cool.
can't find any documentation to tell me how many I can have, but I haven't run into the limit yet. Also, my naming convention on the Siemens, I can call a tool whatever I want. I can literally name my tool Jeff and ask for Jeff, and Jeff will get loaded into the spindle. The Siemens allows
That's
you
so
to
cool.
do, yeah, you got, I think it's 32 ASCII characters that you can use to name your tool. In my case, I name with just numbers. So my tools, for instance, I've got my core libraries. Um, that's like, ooh, hang on, let me not knock my microphone. Tool 1 is my chamfer mill and NC spotting drill. Tool 2 is a 6 millimeter end mill. Tool 3 is a 4 mil. Tool 4 is a 3 mil because some idiot named those. Tool 5 is my 10 mil rougher. And then we get into my drills. 6 is a 2.5, 7 is a 3.2, 8 is a 4.2, 9 is a 10. So it's like all my standard drilling sizes for tapping.
Oh,
And then it
dang,
gets
you
up
drill a
to,
lot of holes.
yeah, I do.
Okay.
I like to keep it all set up that whenever I need one, I just load it in. Then I've got like tool 69 is my face mill. Tool 16 is always my probe. It lives in pocket 16. It's always there. It's non-optional. It
Yeah.
lives in the machine. And then I've got a rack on the front of my machine that can take like 60 tools. So between the 16 that are in the machine and the 27 that are currently outside the machine, I think of those, there's like 4 or 5 that are not set up yet. But I've got tool tags. So
MC holders. Yeah.
yeah, empty holders, or like I don't use them, so it's missing a pull stud or stuff like that. There's one tool that isn't set up. So my tool tags, if I put it upside down, the tool is not set up yet. So like if I change out an end mill and it goes in the rack, the tool tag will go upside down. That when I load it in the machine, I know I need to now touch off this tool. If the tool tag's the right way up, it's touched off and loaded in the controller. I can slap it in
Okay.
whichever pocket, go to my offsets page, tell the machine that whatever tool is in whichever pocket, and it loads the offsets automatically.
So it's already touched off from the tool
Yeah,
setter. It has a number assigned to it. You don't have to take the time to touch it off.
yeah.
It's already known.
Yeah, so for
Got it.
anything that is like I keep from M3 to M12. I don't have an M12 thread mill, but M3 to M10 thread mills live set up. They set up, they tagged. If I need them, I put them in the machine and I load them. I load the offset. The drills for all of those are all set up and live in holders. And then my core tools are set up. Like today, I've got to go break down my core tools because I want to switch over to running steel. So then I just use the holder, put a 6mm steel end mill, and then instead of being tool 2, it'll be tool 402 because all my steel tools are in the 400 series, same number but with a 4 in front of them basically. So instead of tool 2, it's now tool 402. That way, if I do have them both set up, I can swap them in and out easily.
But do you have to retouch it off?
So yeah, then I'll have to if I'm swapping the end mill, then I'll retouch off. But the next little while, I'm planning on buying some more tool holders that I can leave.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah,
that I can
have
leave
some
my
steel
core
tooling tool holders.
Yeah, my core steel tools and my core aluminium tools set up at all times, and just swap them in and out as I need to. Because
Yeah,
like now I've got to
money.
go. Pardon?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It costs lots of money.
That's why I really want to get that silver CNC tool setter and probe that Possum has in his sharp in my machine because I can't wait for the day where I'm not having to touch off every tool on top of my stock with a 1, 2, 3 block every time I set up. It's
I
just
got
it's killer, dude.
A killer deal. I got a killer deal on a TC27R, the Renishaw tool setter. I effectively got it for free because it was broken. I then stripped it and ran it through the ultrasonic cleaner. Had to make a seal. Renishaw will not sell you the seal that goes on the little kinematic coupling. They're like, if it's broken, send it to us. We will repair it. Like, they will not sell it to you. My mate works for them. They're the agent. They're like, no, if it's damaged, you need to send it to us. My mate sends them a picture. There's the probe laid out. I've stripped the entire thing. And they're like, okay. They don't sell that. So then I made a mold and made a silicon seal. So I made up a mold, had my mate inject it for me, and then made a replacement seal for the probe.
Wow, you had it injection molded.
Well, no, just silicon. So you mixed up 2 parts silicon and injected it with a syringe into my mold. It took a few attempts to get it right. But yeah, this was a Haas one. So Scotch Brite the Haas branding off and re-anodized the mount because I don't want Haas stuff in my machine. Ugh.
Yeah, don't jinx your machine.
Yeah, but if you're looking for a tool setter, they're not expensive. I was looking at one the other night. I actually found a probe the other night for. So I'll do the maths now. I really need to get my imperializer sorted out. For $400.
That is not bad.
Not at all.
Not bad at all.
Obviously, like integration is why they cost so much.
Getting it to work with your controllers, that's the tricky part.
That's the tricky bit. You got to get your hands on all those macros and get the integration done. That's the hard part on that. But you said your machine has a skip signal.
It does. It does have a skip signal output or input, whatever. I looked in the manual. Both of them do.
Oh, that's nice. Because the manual for the Siemens controller drives me mad. Like, I'm trying to figure out exactly where the wiring is. Like, I know where I've got to connect my probes, but I want to know what else needs to be connected. Do I need to have an amplifier, or do I need to have some other stuff to disable the probe? I can't find that information anywhere. So I've asked I spoke to the agents yesterday. I'm like, hey, I need to know how much. The local, the guys I bought the machine from. I phoned the guy I went to high school with yesterday, and we caught up. And then I'm like, hey, we got some problems. Firstly, I need to know how much a license to enable fourth axis on this machine is going to cost me. I need to know how to interface with said fourth axis. Like, what is the options, or what are the options for interface? Can I use step direction? Do I need to use like an EtherCAT servo? Do I need to feed back the encoder positions, like what is actually required, because I know they do integrate a fourth onto these machines. And then I was asking for the integration documents for the probing as well, because I know where to hook it up. I know which connectors to connect it to. I just want to know what is actually required to,
Yeah, that's tricky.
yeah, to make it work. Like
Even with the
what?
Fanic, it's hard to do.
Yeah, because you meant to have a Renishaw. There's a little Renishaw box you meant to have that will enable and disable the probe and do all those things. So you can tell the probe to turn off at the end of the cycle, and then when it loads into the spindle, you can tell it to turn back on, kind of thing, so that you don't just drain the batteries. But yeah, that to get them to install it is not a cheap endeavor. So to have them to buy the probe from Renishaw for my machine is about $5,000.
Just to get the probe in your hands physically,
Yeah,
not integrated with the machine
yeah.
or any of that.
That's if
Just
that's
to
if I
get the physical
buy
probe is
yeah,
$5,000.
that's if I buy an OMP
Wow.
40, which is the Renishaw one that all the Haas guys use and everyone
Is
uses.
that the one that comes on all the Haases?
Yeah, they get
Yeah,
such a
I've
good
used that
deal.
one.
Like they get such a good deal on those things.
Oh my gosh, man. When I first used a probe at my last job, I was like, I've been going this long without a probe. Like this is like life-changing stuff.
So I
Like,
ran, yeah,
oh my gosh. And
it's
the interface
convenient.
for Haas, like the VPS system that Haas
Yeah,
has, the virtual programming or virtual probing system,
visual
the
programming.
visual probing system, yeah, it is so easy and so great. I think it's better than the Renishaw one that comes on Fanic. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just
the Renishaw Fanuc
awesome.
ones are like super super potato. So yeah,
Yeah,
I found a wireless probe. It's called the GP-800. That's what did I say? It was $400 wireless probe.
beautiful.
And then tool
Well,
setter. Um, there is the where is it? I was looking at it. So I don't know what the shipping to you is going to be. I know what the shipping to me looks like. So WP-600. It's basically a replacement for a TS27R. It's a replacement for a Renishaw. That is
so they're saying it's like
$250.
an equivalent to the Renishaw. Is that what they're trying to
It's a
say?
replacement for it, is the way they put it.
Uh, the Chinese,
Um,
very, it's the Timu version.
Pretty much. Although I must say the stuff off AliExpress is not too bad. Um,
You love that website,
oh yeah,
Jamie.
the thing is, yeah, I can't get half the stuff from a reputable seller, so I
I
get it
get
from
it.
these guys. Like, so
Totally get it.
I've got a TS27R on my machine that just goes to a little Arduino box that beeps when I trigger it, and that works. I touch all my tools against that. That's a known position, so like I'll touch everything off against that,
So when
and
it beeps, it stays there, and then you just change your offset, your work offset on your controller.
yeah, I jog down manually till it beeps. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
jog down, it'll beep. I'll jog back up, drop to half thou increments, jog down till it beeps, and then I'll on my machine. You just go. There's a tool length setting thing. You go tool length, manually set, done. Set for the spin, the machine, the tool that's in the spindle.
Hmm.
So you can manually set it.
So it's basically like a digital edge finder kind of that
Effectively,
beeps.
but it lives on the
Yeah,
table and is waterproof, so I don't have to ever deal with it. Like it just lives there.
that's
So
cool.
I sent you a link to the tool setter. The tool setter, you would put it
Very
on your
cool.
machine. You could probably write a macro to do it, or you could manually use it. But if you've got the skip signal, you may as well use the skip signal.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of the lean topic,
Yeah.
learning macros is just seems so key to having an
Yes.
efficiently ran shop and like operation. I don't care if you're doing prototyping, production, whatever. If you learn macros really well, you can go really far in this
Yeah.
industry. And
You can make
it's
your
still new
machine
to
do.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
make it
You
do
can
all
make
sorts of
your
fun stuff.
machine do all kinds of fun stuff that make any kind of setup or process easier. I bought a big, very boring macro book about Fanic and macros, and it's like super in depth, and I'm still struggling to learn it all. But I mean, I've already learned so much reading it and reading through it. I'm like, man, I wish I knew this earlier because
Yeah.
it's just once you learn it, it it takes you a lot farther than you could think of
Yeah,
ever
I've brute
going.
forced my way into that with Linux CNC a while ago, and yeah, it makes a huge difference knowing how to get what you want out of it. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot you can do. I made serial engraving programs. I've done all sorts of fun stuff with it.
What was
I'm
that?
about
What was it? A subroutine or something that you incurred a confounded?
Yeah. So it's actually just this one long G code file. And then in the beginning, you set a macro variable. So when the program, the program looks at a macro variable. So you go into MDR and you set the variable to what you want your serial number to be. And then the program looks at that serial number, breaks it out into the 4 digits. So it breaks out the first digit, the second digit, the third digit, and the fourth digit, and then runs code appropriately. So you output, for every digit, you output 0 through 9. And you put it under a certain thing. So basically, it's an if statement. If
If
said
this, then that.
variable,
If
yeah,
this,
if
then
said
that.
variable
Yeah.
equals the number, it runs that piece of code. So it takes a few hours to get set up, but once it's set up, it's set up. You
Yeah.
only have to set it up once. So
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that I got that working. Kurt was like, "Oh, it's a lot easier than he thought." So I gave him the code, and he's been running a version of it since. He's made a lot of changes, but that's what he engraves all his pens with.
Mm-hmm. Very
Yeah,
cool.
so I'm glad he's using it. Like that took me 3 or 4 hours to get right, and then courtesy of AJ, I could actually use it because that's one thing I will say for the Instagram community. Like the Oaks are super helpful. AJ posted a thing one night, kind of as like a throwaway comment about rotating your work offsets in Linux CNC or in Pathpilot, and I saw it there and I saved it to my saved things on Instagram, and then I wrote that macro and I posted all the code, and the job wouldn't fit in that orientation. So I had to rotate the job using work offset rotation in Linux
What
CNC
is
to be
that,
able to
like
run it.
XY mirror?
Yeah, or X, Y rotation. So
Rotation.
yeah, so basically I rotated the job 90 degrees. So my
90,
X
okay,
became
90 degrees. Got it.
so my X became my Y and my Y became my X. But you can also do it at 45 degrees. You can do it at all different
So
different
you don't
angles.
have to actually change the program. You can just tell
Yeah,
the controller
that
rotate
it's
it 90 degrees and it'll automatically make all the calculations.
yeah. It makes it all it's built in. Yeah, really really powerful. But
Very
kind of like
powerful.
super random. Like he mentioned it as a throwaway comment. Like
That's
it was a
super nerdy
throwaway
stuff.
comment.
That's
Like
deep.
maybe this will help somebody somewhere down the line, and yeah, it helped someone down the line.
No, for sure.
Yeah,
Like I didn't even know that was possible. That's kind of, is
yeah.
that like a work plane macro? Or
Um,
no, no, not really.
no, it's hang on. Let me look it up
Just
quick.
work offset rotate, I
Um,
guess is what you would call it.
Linux CNC G codes. Let me quickly look it up. And then, so I don't know if you've obviously been watching my stories this week because you like to creep on me on Instagram. Did you see my spindle gripper?
Yeah, I saw your gimbal automation spindle gripper.
Yes, I actually was chatting to the guys from Gimbal this week, and they were like, "Yeah, they like all the stuff they're seeing me do. They did, and it never left their workshop. Like they tried a lot of the stuff I'm doing, and it obviously didn't work, so it never became products. But like they were saying on so they've got a podcast. Michael from Gimbals on a podcast, and he was saying the one man band in his shop making a gripper, go for it. You're not the customer who's going to buy from them. Like they understand that I'm probably never going to buy one of their products because I can make it for the same or for less. Whereas you get guys, yeah, it might get to the point that I'm like, okay, screw it, I just need it, let me buy it. But at the moment, I'm not at that point.
You have more time than money than the other way
Um,
around.
yeah, pretty much. Like, and
Yeah,
then also
I get
Pearson
it.
was saying, Pearson on their podcast was saying that guys want to build their own vacuum table, and he's like, listen, yeah, you need this job to go out in a week's time. Why are you going to spend 5 days making a vacuum table? We have it in stock. We're really good at making
Yeah,
vacuum tables. You're really good at making parts. Stick to what you're good at. Like I know it's somewhat expensive, but just buy the thing
that's a
and
great
you can
point.
work. Like yeah, it's it's one of those things where it's points of diminishing returns. And if you're a guy doing it as a hobby, then sure, no problem. Spend 3 days making something instead of buying it. But when you've got the order and you need to just get the work out, then it's time to just pay for it and get the work out.
Yeah, way more worth it, because in that time that you would have spent making it, you could have put out X amount of products if you just bought it, and it would actually be more worthwhile. You would save more money just buying it.
That's exactly
and you'd have
it.
a better product.
Yeah. My main thing with that is living in sunny South Africa, the shipping on everything is the same price as the bloody product. So if I try for instance, anodizing dyes. Anodizing dyes are, call it $10 a bottle, $115 shipping. So
what do we always say, Jamie? What do we always say? Because Africa?
Because of Africa, yeah. If you want it to arrive, you're going to pay out of your nose for it. That's just, it is what it is living in Africa. If I order from AliExpress, I've started ordering with the actual postal service again, because like if it's small items, if it's a $10 or $20 thing, and I'm like, okay, if it never arrives, I'm not going to be entirely heartbroken. So let me just order it, and if it arrives, it arrives. But if it's something I actually want to arrive, then it's $50 shipping every single time. And it's just,
you got to make a choice.
Yeah, it is what it is. Ordinate.
This is keeping Jamie's DIY spirit alive.
Well, that's the thing. Like the gimbal gripper is, I think it's like $1,500, which really, for what it is not bad. It comes with all the integration stuff that they do, which is where the value add is. On their stuff, you're not getting your value add from the components they're selling you. You're getting the value add from all the R&D that they've done and having all those macros and things ready to go.
The integration.
That's where they are making, well, not making the money, but that's where their value proposition is. Which is
that the intellectual property or the research and development they put in?
Well, the R&D, like thing is, you buy a system from them. Like you want to buy one of their part loading systems, where you put the material on the table, it loads it into their grip station. All those macros are done for Haas, for a bunch of different controllers. So you're paying for all those macros, not necessarily for the hardware. Like the hardware cost on that is a small amount of what they're selling it for. They're selling you the solution. And that's fair enough. Like I've got no problem with that. Like that's their value add. Just like for me, my value add is we don't just make what you send us a drawing of. We actually look at what you're doing and we try and assist you and prevent issues. Like that is where our value add is as a customer or as a supplier. It's not just we're trying to make your part exactly to the drawing. We want to understand where it's going and try and optimize and prevent issues, because issues come up a lot.
That's where the engineering comes in your business name.
Yeah. No, that's it. Like the initial slogan was, your special is our standard, because we do all the weird shit.
We do all the weird shit. We should just make it that. We do all the weird shit.
We do all the weird shit. Like, oh, wow. We do so much weird stuff.
So we're coming up on an hour and 15 minutes. Do you want to keep going?
Yeah. Let's go for another 10 minutes or so, and then we'll call it. We seem to be doing hour and a half long podcasts. I'm busy getting distracted on the internet, though. I'm trying to find what that coordinate rotation G code is so that I can tell you to see if your machine
that AJ showed you? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I can't remember what it actually is. And
it is powerful, though. Sounds like it.
It is super powerful, but it's really hard to find.
Very niche.
It's a real weird one. Rotate.
That's cool, though.
Anyway, I built that little gripper only to discover that my through spindle air purge is not working.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that in your story. Okay, I remember that.
That was a bit annoying.
That's
so
not
I got
good.
all the.
Was it a valve issue or was it?
No, I've got air coming through. So I disconnected the valve and just pumped air with the air gun because I wanted to I don't know how to override the valve currently, so we'll figure that out. That is really a minor issue. The issue I ran into is I could hear it, so I assumed it was working. Put the spindle gripper in, went with an air gun to trigger it, just disconnected the hose, put the air gun in the hose, it was going to trigger it, and it doesn't work. So I then took the tool out, did a tool change to no tool, went up, put my hand there to see if I could feel the air blowing through, can't feel anything. So I got my wife to come out and help me, got her to blow air through there constantly during a tool change, like at high pressure to try to figure out what the hell's going on. Ended up pulling the covers off, but the access panels are like not even 4 inch by 4 inch. They're tiny. So I open up, trying to see what's going in with the going on in there with the torch. Air's getting to it, not coming through the spindle though. And there's a block next to the nut of the spindle. And I don't know how it's meant to work, so I don't want to go poke it with a stick until I understand. So I've asked the guys at WD Hearn for a manual or to ask around and see if anyone's had a similar issue. It may just be a case of I need to spray some WD-40 down the line and then something will come unstuck, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so it sounds like you have a blockage.
Yeah, either that or I think there might be a kind of like the turrets on the lathes where it's got that brass piece that slides back and forth as the turret changes to let coolant through. I think it might be something to that effect that's not extending when the air goes on.
Yeah, you have that turret style, robo drill style tool changer.
Yeah.
That might have something to do with it.
Well, I had it open. No, I had it open and there's a block next to the nut and that's where the air is coming out. So I assume it's meant to go from there through the spindle. But I think what's happened is either dirty air and it's caused something that's meant to move to not move, or something, I don't know, something sticky. So I might just spray some WD-40 down it later today and just try get it to come back to life. But I also don't want to poke it with a stick until I know what's actually happening. So I'm waiting for the guys. Yeah, I'm waiting for the guys to try and get me an actual manual for this thing or a parts breakdown so I can understand what is happening up there without stripping it.
You don't want to take apart your spindle without knowing how to put it back together?
Well, if I take it apart, I can put it back together. The big issue I've got now is I can't get to so there's 3 access panels. I can get to 2 of them. To get to the third one, I need to take off the rail that pushes the tool changer out of the way when the spindle comes down. And if I can avoid messing with my tool changer, I'm going to avoid it. So I don't want to pull that off until I know what's actually going on.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm hopefully going to get feedback today on that, and then I can get that working. But I have a plan. If I can't get the through spindle air to work, then I'm going to just build a kinematic coupling and basically go over where the gripper is parked, drop in, rotate 60 degrees, take the gripper, load my part, drop the gripper off again. Like, I can make a plan to work around it. I obviously don't want to. I want
Without
to use
using the air to actuate it? You can mechanically do it?
So I would have an air line that's attached to the gripper. So basically, I would go to a docking station, pick it up, and then have a solenoid control it, then dock it back again. Mm-hmm. But that adds a bit of complication that I don't really want to deal with.
You don't want an air hose constantly connected, flopping around inside your machine?
That's not the end of the world. I've got 2 of them already. So it's not the end of the world to have that flopping around in there. I have ways to make it stay out of the way. But yeah, if I can have it run through the spindle, that would be first prize. And then I'm busy with automatic vise project now as well, so that I can actually grab and loosen my grip and loosen my parts automatically so I can load them into a vise. But yeah, that's been an interesting few days of development. It went from trying to build my own pneumatic vise to shoving a very heavily geared stepper motor on one of those little self-centering 5-axis vices. One of the cheap Chinese ones, just making an actuator for that.
Can you hear me?
Which I ended up... Yeah, I can. I ended up spending... Well, I can now. I ended up spending the whole of Sunday trying to get the code to work for the actuator. To no avail.
Jamie.
Yes.
My headphones just died. Give me a second.
No worries. Okay, so it looks like your headphones last for an hour and like 10 minutes. Technical difficulties. Okay, well, we've got a bit of dead air here. Let me just once again remind you guys to please rate us on Spotify and like us on YouTube so that we can try to get the podcast out to more people. Also, feel free to recommend it to people that may be interested in hearing what's going on in Jon's and my shop. How are you doing there, Jon? You got your audio issues sorted out yet? Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. We got Jon back. Some
Yeah.
minor technical issues.
Yeah. It
So
happens.
I spent the whole of Sunday trying to get a little Arduino project to tighten a stepper motor or turn a stepper motor forward with a set number of or set current limit and wait for stall detection so that I know the vice is closed. And then when you trigger it, it turns the other way with a higher current limit so that it'll always be able to loosen the vice. For like opens for like 2 seconds, and then you can take your part out, put a part in, it clamps until it stalls and knows that it's closed. Because I've got some motors kicking around that'll give me nearish 20 Newton meters of torque.
How are you measuring the torque with the voltage in
With the
relation?
current. So I know what the motor's current limit is, and I know what the gear ratio is, and I know what its torque is. But I also know that the faster you spin it, the less torque you have. So my plan is to tighten it at a higher speed so that when it loosens, you loosen it slower and you'll have more torque. Just because of the
Got it.
characteristics of a stepper motor. So I need
Yeah,
to
they
go
have the
buy a
most
10
torque
millimeter.
from 0 to very
Yeah.
early on.
So I need to go buy a 10 millimeter socket so I can machine it out to fit a 8 millimeter shaft and then make some little plates to give this a proper test. Because I also don't need 40 Newton meters of clamping force. I'm going to use, because I've got to use, this is a soft jaw vise, I'm going to make gripping soft jaws that you drop the bar in and it's got teeth that bite in. So with 10 or 12 Newton meters of torque, I'm still going to have plenty of holding power.
What are you using,
So
a NEMA stepper?
yeah, it's a NEMA 17 with a 50-to-1 gearbox.
Well, that's a little baby, but the gearbox helps with that.
Yeah. So I'm thinking of
What
maybe
ratio is that?
going 50-to-1.
Oh, okay.
I've got a 50 and a 19 that I have. So I'm thinking of maybe changing it to a NEMA 23 and going with a 20-to-1 gearbox or 10-to-1 gearbox. Because I only realistically need about 20 Newton meters of torque, and that should be more
Mm-hmm.
than adequate. So I was thinking of making, at the moment, the motor sticks out the side because then I can just direct couple um, with a socket. But I might look at like making a riser and then coupling it with gears or something so that it's a bit smaller footprint, and then just using the off the shelf, the little Zhang Dai PAF
Yeah, the
self-centering
little
vices.
centerless,
Yeah, because
self-centering Chinese vices.
by the time I get them here, they're like $50-$60. They're really not super expensive.
Nice.
I've got another one that I use. It's also a Chinese one. They're a bit more expensive. They're about $100 a vise, but they're a bit bigger, and I've got two of those already.
Yeah, I've been thinking about those little self-centering vices. I've always used like a traditional style Kurt
So
vice. I know AJ just got one for
yeah,
the first time, but
yeah. So I've got two 4-inch vices, and then two of these. It's a 70 by 100, so it can hold up to about 3 inches, and it's 4 inches long. I've got two of
mhm.
those at the back of the machine that I do all my op one work in. So it's got serrated jaws. I drop the block in, tighten it, go to town, and then I put it in soft jaws or into pallets for op two.
Got it. Got
Yeah,
it.
and
Yeah, sorry, what?
that work. No, that works really well for small parts. You can't beat it.
Yeah, I'm tossing around the idea of making like a main subplate bolted down to the table on my mill, and
Yeah,
then having, interpolated or reamed out precision holes like, across and along
yeah,
the the plate and then have subplates with the vices already, mounted on there
Yeah,
and aligned and everything. So whenever I want to do different setups with different types of parts,
it's
part
easy.
numbers or however many at a time, I can just put the sub plates on top, drop them in, line them up with the pins, and then bolt them down
So
or,
basically, a
or latch them
Sanders
down or
plate.
whatever. Yeah, it's like a little pallet system with those little vices on it.
So basically,
Little
putting a
quick
Sanders
change.
plate on your machine.
Basically, not like
Yeah,
the Saunders plate with all the holes in it,
you would
all the
just put a
threaded
limited
holes.
number of holes. Yeah,
But there would be a limited number of holes that will fit the different plates in each like
yeah,
pallet. The plates would be like little pallets with different uh fixtures on them,
different.
like
Yeah,
little vices or like Mighty Bite, fixture plates designed for a certain part, so I can just drop stuff in and out real quick instead of having to like mess with it a lot and
you're having to clock it every time because my
indicate
biggest thing.
the
Yeah,
vice jaw. Yeah, the fixed jaw. You have to run an indicator on it, make sure it's straight with the x-axis every time. It's
yeah, a bit annoying.
yeah. I
Yeah,
think
I
if I
should
had some kind of
probably.
system like that, it would help a lot.
Yeah, I should probably do something similar because I like to run my two vases that they are in line with each other, so I can put something between them. But that
Oh
takes
yeah, absolutely. A
yeah,
longer piece of material when you want.
but
Yeah.
indicating that in takes a lot longer than I would like. So I should probably just make
Hmm.
it. Thing is, like, I will leave one vase in and I'll take one out to put my lathe chuck in there. So it's no, yeah, my setup is forever changing. Like I
Oh
should
wow, you
probably
you, you I've seen people do
no,
that. Use a lathe chuck on their table instead of
yeah.
making like round soft jaws.
So yeah, I do that. So I've got that 80 millimeter riser, the 3 inch riser on my machine because I can't reach the table with the tools because it's a drill tap center. So I put an 80 millimeter riser so I can do plate work, and then my vices all just drop onto that. Like my two self-centering vices, they sit at the back. Like they are made of
Yeah.
risers, so they're the same height as my 4 inch vices. That way everything's kind of similar plane, that you don't end up having these vices super low and you working behind another vise.
Yeah. And you risk hitting your spindle on a
Yeah.
vise or something when you're working on the other side. Yeah, I noticed you have yours kind of to the left, right? And then
Um,
your tool setter is behind that to the right.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I've got the risers on the left of the machine, then I've got the pallet system
Hmm.
and the tool setter on the right of the machine.
Yeah, I think you have that little 0 point
Yeah.
in front of the tool setter.
Yeah, that can be a
Yeah.
little terrifying when you're running a face mill between the tool setter and a vise on that pallet system. But so
Yeah,
far
you might
so
want to
good.
make a riser for that too.
Haven't crashed. Well, I did make a riser, so now it's sitting. It sits. If I take the pallets off, it's just below the riser. That way, it's not
Yeah.
you're not machining in a hole because that was terrifying.
Yeah, I see those guys on Instagram. They run like a 5-axis trunnion setup or just a
Yeah,
trunnion table, and then they run regular fixed vices next to it on the left. I'm
yeah,
like, man, if you post out the wrong thing or something happens, you're gonna crash right into that trunnion.
yeah.
That's a bad day.
The nice thing with running production is once your code's proven out, you're running the same code again and again and again. Like if it didn't
Sure.
crash the first time, it isn't going to crash the second time. Like that's yeah, it freaks people out,
Yeah,
but that
they do
is
exactly what we tell them to do, Jamie.
exactly. They're really good at following instructions, even if they're bad instructions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something like people don't really understand. Like I've got my one friend, he came through here. We were running parts. I like to mess with them, so I'll run the first part at like 20% rapids, load the second part in, push 100% rapids, turn around, hit go, and walk away. And he watches the machine come down at 48 meters a minute towards the vise and stopping like a millimeter above it, and he cucks himself every time.
Oh yeah, that drill tap style mill. That thing moves fast, huh?
Yeah, 19,000 inches a minute. I think it's, no, 1900. 1900, yeah.
1,900 inches per minute, you mean?
Yeah. I
Almost
wish it was
2,000.
possible.
That's mine does like 1,000.
Yeah.
So that's
It's
almost
it's
twice as
truly
fast as mine.
terrifying. Yeah. No, it's
For
truly
sure.
terrifying. But yeah, lots of fun. Anyway, what are your plans for today and this week?
Technical difficulties.
No worries.
Jamie?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, let's go through
Yeah.
that.
What are you up to today and for the rest of the week?
Well, for today, I got last two jobs out to my customer. So like I said before, I've been working on getting those new prototypes out to the customers for custom fitment. Today I am making a 2.5 inch thick of set of soft jaws, which are really big, but that's just for the size of the part. I have to
Okay.
use I make my own blank soft jaws,
Yeah.
and I had to use like a 3 inch length of cut, 1/2 inch end mill just to make the holes for the jaws,
Oh,
which is
jeez.
pretty interesting. And it's sticking out there so far, it makes a funny noise when I'm interpolating the holes.
Yeah.
And you get all that chatter. And my wife was asking me, "What is that noise? Is everything okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's supposed to make that noise." She's like, "You sure?"
That's how you know it's
Yeah,
working.
yeah, yeah. It sticks out that far. It's just
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do.
No.
So yeah, today I am going to be programming the pocket for those soft jaws after I bolt them into the vise. Gonna put the shim in there, make the custom soft jaws for that part, and then once I get the part fitted in there, I'm just gonna set my work offset off of one of the bolt holes coming out the other side of the stock with a test indicator, since I don't
Okay.
have a probe, and then I'm going to be programming Op2 for that and running that, and hopefully I can get those done tomorrow and out to the anodizer, and I can get on to the magnesium parts.
Okay. No, nice. Yeah. I've got to go and change my mill over to running steel. I've got to go make a little wire choppy thingy and then some other bits and bobs out of steel. So yeah, I've got to go and clean out and change the filters on the back of the machine, the filter cloth in the coolant tray, because it's
Mm-hmm.
full of very fine aluminium shavings. Because that's what happens when you run the dust maker. Like my aluminium rougher makes these tiny shavings, which are great for chip management, but goes straight through the mesh filter on the back of the machine.
I have the same problem. I
Yeah,
have the same problem. My aluminum rougher is serrated
yeah,
on the,
makes tiny little
and all
shavings.
the chips are tiny little squares, and they always fill up in my coolant tank, and I have to scoop them
So
out
yeah,
constantly.
I've got that stuff you put under a couch, and that works pretty well. Like
Okay.
it drains a little slowly, but I've got to go take out one. So I've got the main the main mesh for catching chips. Then below that, there's two smaller mesh filters, and those I put the filter cloth in. And then if that overflows, it overflows into the tank. It's like it's submerged in the tank, so then you don't end up with spills. So I've got to go change those out because I try and keep my clean aluminium shavings separate from the mixed stuff because I get a lot more for the clean alley than I do for the mixed shavings.
Yeah, you got to have it separated. So
Yeah, I
every
get
time you
like
switch to a steel job, do you clean out your coolant tank?
yeah, so I'll clean out my filters and then the steel. I don't mind the
Mm-hmm.
steel being mixed with aluminium. I mind when I'm running aluminium. I don't want any steel mixed in with that because
Yeah.
it's like 3 or 4 times the amount of money I get for the scrap.
Mm-hmm.
And I took £1,000 of scrap through yesterday.
So today you're going to be cleaning out your sump tank.
I'll probably just clean the filter out today, and then I'll pump the sump out probably next week. I'm waiting to hear back from the coolant guys because
Mm-hmm.
then I need to do Bertha's tank first. So I'm waiting for them to get me their cleaning agents. I'll put that in. I'll run the machine for a day or two with that, pump that tank out, and then put in the new coolant. And then
Yeah,
I'll look.
Curtis from MilSpec was recommending that to me. He said before you change your coolant out, run that cleaner stuff
Yeah,
through for a couple parts, and it makes a huge difference.
yeah. So the Bertha is really stinky, and the coolant's got like a dark color, so it needs to get out of there now. It's been in there for just on a year now, and it's been stinky for 10 months of that year because I didn't clean it properly the last time. So now with Monica, I can suck that thing clean in like I'll probably spend 2 or 3 hours, and that machine will be as clean as it's ever been. And then I will put in the new FlexiLube coolant and see how that goes. I'm getting the BioCool CU2. that I'm going to put in there,
Cool.
and then we'll see how that works. Apparently, it smells nice. It's got a mineral oil content. It's got a whole bunch. It's got a detergent in it. It's got a whole bunch of cuck in it. The guy reckons it's a really good coolant. So we will see if it is really good.
Did they give you a free promotional bucket of it?
They didn't, but they're going to hook me up with the other cleaning stuff. Like cool. They've got someone who can take away my old coolant. That's the big thing for me, is having someone to take the old stuff away that I don't have to throw it in a river.
Yeah, I have a bunch of old coolant buckets filled up with nasty old coolant on the side of my house. Like
that as well. Mine's the same. I've got probably, by the time I empty this, it's probably going to be about 70 gallons worth of coolant that needs to get out of my place. So they charge £2.50 per liter. So I've got to do conversions to liters and gallons. So we're going to work in liters because it's easier. No, other way around. 2.5 divided by 20. So it's about 12 cents per liter to get rid of it. So 60 cents per gallon, give or take, for them to come and take
Imperializer.
No, I'm waiting. Parts arrived today for my Imperializer. So it's about 60 US cents per gallon to have them take away the coolant.
That's not bad. Well, it is kind of expensive.
Yeah, it is what it is. I need it gone. Like,
so what's the steel job? What is it? What are you doing? Stainless or 1018 or what are you doing?
It's just mild steel and a little bit of tool steel. I'm making a thing to chop a nice 15 kg roll of welding wire into 6 millimeter long pieces.
So, we talked about this last episode.
So I'm still trying to get around to finishing that. So I need to work on that today because the guy's coming to fetch it tomorrow. So that's going to be the today project. I just had to get some other work. Yeah, I had to get some other work out before I could change over to steel, and then I need to make some dovetail clamps and some other bits and bobs while I'm set up for steel. But anyway,
take advantage of it while you're set up. You got to do that. If you're set up for steel, might as well get all that stuff out of the way.
Yeah, like that's it. I've got a list of steel bits and bobs to make, so I'll get all that knocked out this morning.
Cool.
But anyway, I think let's call it there for today, and let's play the outro.
Let's do it.
Thank you very much for listening. Hopefully you'll hear from us in the next week or so.
Enjoy making chips.
Yeah, let's go make some noise.